Is Fox News finally admitting that a lot of these people with the boom booms are actually right wingers? Yep, that's going down, which we need to have this conversation, and I have to talk around it. So I'm deliberately self-censoring because the algorithm will ding me, but some stuff happened over the weekend that I'm sure you're aware of. And both of the 2A guys were ex-Marines who were served in Iraq. And that we need to have that conversation because we got to deal with the PTSD of combat vets. 20 to 22 veterans a day unalive. And it's a horrible statistic. And the reason is they've got PTSD. If you go into a war and you see actual combat, you're going to have some type of PTSD. That's just how it is. I don't like loud noises, and I was over there telling jokes. I used to when I would be surfing, and this finally stopped like 3 or 4 years ago. In the California coast, there's a lot of military bases, and there's helicopters all over LA and Southern California, weather, traffic, but then the military helicopter, boom, 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 you would hear that really loudly. And I would always hear it way before my friends on my surfboard, and it would affect me. So that affected me going over telling jokes, having a couple rocket attacks, being on a helicopter that came under fire. And that's nothing. That is nothing compared to actual combat. So we have to address this. And the fact that 2 Marines back to back, one at a Mormon church, one at people just sounds like outside on the water listening to music in a small town in North Carolina. We have to address this. We have millions of combat vets because we were in Iraq for 10 years. We were in Afghanistan for 20. You can't send these young men and women to do these things and expect they're just going to come back and integrate into society. And then the VA, which Donald Trump just is cutting jobs at the VA. And I've heard so many vets say, well, I went to the VA and they just gave me a bunch of prescription drugs. And it's like, we have to do more than that. But Fox is waking up to this fact. So this is a clip from Fox News. This is not edited. This is them talking about what just happened over the weekend in America.
That Fetterman was having with Maria, and something that he posted on Twitter, which the deputy White House press secretary did as well, was this chart that Axios published about this rise in left-wing violence. And the right was gleefully tweeting it, ignoring the fact that the right-wing violence was much larger than the left-wing violence, which is the truth about it. And you can go anywhere you want for these statistics. You can go to Cato, you can go to the Government Accountability Office, you can go to the Center for, Strategic and International Studies to see that. And in the wake of the absolutely tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk, the right, led by Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, wants to make it out as if the left are the only ones who have ever used the word fascist. And you can see a compilation of Stephen Miller saying it is passing all over Twitter. You have Donald Trump on tape. You have analyses of how many times that he's referred to Democrats and journalists as evil just in the first 6 months of his administration. And, I think that we should have led this conversation with the tragedies of this weekend. We had more mass shootings, which is just the daily occurrence in American life. And Kash Patel, J.D. Vance, and Donald Trump, Caroline Levin as well, out there with a very different narrative than I would think that they would have. But because it doesn't add up for them, the guy who drove up to the Mormon church, set the place on fire, killed 5 people, shooting them, was a Trump supporter. He had a Trump Vance flag in his backyard, which some on the right are trying to say that it said "Stop Trump." Doesn't make any sense. And if a leftist or someone had killed someone and had a dark Brandon flag or a Biden-Harris flag, you don't think that Kash Patel, that would have been the first thing that he would have said?
Yeah, because the right is going everywhere saying, go after the Mormon people. There's a difference. There's a difference when there's one person, a one-off, and people that are going.
It's not a one-off. Go back to the Axios chart, and you can see how much of a not one-off it is. The hypocrisy is astounding. If you want to have a message of tolerance and let's get these people the mental help they need, because he needed mental help, so did the guy in North Carolina who killed 3 people at that waterfront bar, a veteran, people who we ignore and don't treat. People said warning signs for decades that had been ignored. make that your message no matter who's killing people. But when the shoe is on the other foot and you can't demonize the left for this one, they say nothing. Nothing. Oh, it was just about anti-Christian bias. It was a Christian, by the way, killing other Christians.
Wow. That is, I give her credit. I don't know that woman. You know, I barely watch Fox. I watch Fox just to see what, because Fox is propaganda. It's to get it's propaganda marketed for conservatives, and MSNBC and CNN are propaganda marketed for liberals. But I give her credit for that, because one of the the data is the data. What do I say on the show? Follow the money, connect the dots, get the truth. What I am saying in the follow the money is the numbers are the numbers. The data is the data. If the data, the hard, real data said that the violence was coming from the left and there was real numbers to show it, I'd say, okay, that's what it is, but it's not. Because that's the other thing too. Who are mainly more conservatives are big Second Amendment people, right? I don't know a lot of liberals that own guns. I know leftists that do, and this is true. And again, I'm glad they brought this up. As I said, we need to address the fact that, you know, it's like when Alex Jones that said, you know, oh, these crisis actors, and it's all sick. No, you don't need wacky conspiracies when you have high levels of untreated mental illness, high levels of veterans coming back from 20 years of urban combat in the Middle East with severe PTSD, and some of them have TBI, traumatic brain injury, on top of the PTSD, which makes it really hard for neurologists and doctors to diagnose, because they're like, is this an emotional thing with PTSD, or was his brain, did he get, you know, was he concussed so hard that his brain is not functioning? We don't know. They have to figure that out. But when you have high levels of untreated mental illness, in America in general, you have everybody just on their phone getting propagandized. You have bad food. This needs to be put into the conversation. The horrible food, all the sugar and everything, which makes people, their moods spike. That was a defense actually used in the 70s when I'm blanking out his name. They made a movie that Sean Penn played, when an openly gay city council member or maybe even mayoral candidate, I forget, in San Francisco was shot. The defense used by the guy that shot him was the Twinkie defense, meaning he had too much sugar in his system. That just might have been a defense. But anyway, we got to look at food, untreated mental illness, all of our veterans coming back with PTSD, and then you have easy access to guns. You don't need wild conspiracies. That is a time bomb. And every day there's two mass shootings, both done by veterans. And this is not me. This is not a witch hunt for veterans. I'm a stand-up comic that did 7 comedy tours in Iraq and Afghanistan and Kuwait. And the 20 to 22 veterans a day that take their own lives, that's a crisis. That's a crisis. And we got to do something about it. A, to save their lives, but B, they have military training and easy access to guns. It's not safe. It's not safe. And I guarantee these guys, if you were to sit them down and talk to them logically, they don't want to do this stuff. But they're dealing with crushing mental illness, and then they're put on meds. They go off their meds. Like, we need to have real science around this. We need to have real science around this. PTSD is very real. It hijacks the human nervous system. What the brain does is it then replays the traumatic event as though it just happened. So the nervous system is reacting as though this memory is happening in real time. And it hijacks your nervous system, and you go into fight or flight. And it makes you get defensive. Now, if you have military training on top of that, then you go right into lock and load. You have military training and you have access to guns. You own guns. You know how to use them. You go into the combat strategy that you were trained with. I'm going to attack from here, come from here. I mean, that's the switch that gets flipped. It's a very dangerous switch, as we just saw from this past weekend. But if you go back, look at the mass. Look at them. Start looking at, a lot of white males, We got to address this issue. We got to address this issue. And I'm glad Fox is talking about it. So we need more data. We need real science and research, not science and research that's funded by the NRA or anybody with an agenda. Crunch the numbers, and the numbers are the numbers. I don't want to hear anybody's agenda coming into the numbers. The numbers are going to tell you what you are. And if that's it, the numbers are the numbers and the data is the data. So let's do something about this, or thoughts and prayers and blame the other side. That's been working. Let's do that more. Yeah. Follow the money, connect the dots, get the truth, shave your knuckles for justice. Support our show, guys. We're independent media. I've been censored long before Jimmy Kimmel was, and nobody came to my aid except you. You guys did. This is the people's channel. Hollywood didn't come to my aid. Nobody came, nobody cared, because I was calling out Obama and the fact that he dropped more bombs than Bush. And if Bush is a war criminal, which he is, then so that means so is Obama. Well, Hollywood liberals didn't want to hear that. So they didn't care when I got censored. Shave your knuckles for justice. Boom.